It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. For it, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Welcome to 2024. As always, in the month of January, I do a 31-day series entitled 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. In the month of January 2024, we'll be doing that, and today is day one. This year, I'm going to open with some of the key speeches from the Department of Justice in 2023 and how those speeches really portend what DOJ enforcement will look like, and equally importantly, what you as a compliance professional will need to do to respond to these new DOJ initiatives. While there were, of course, multiple FCPA enforcement actions from 2023, I really think these speeches from the Department of Justice portend where the DOJ is going with enforcement and give us greater insight to what their expectations were going to be. So we're going to start this month by looking at these key speeches and other initiatives from the Department of Justice, and then we'll move into how you can respond for your compliance program. I know you'll enjoy this month of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, and I know you'll find it informative. Day 6, new Department of Justice Mergers and Acquisitions Safe Harbor. In October 2023, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco announced a new policy regarding mergers and acquisitions. It is a M&A safe harbor policy that encourages companies to self-disclose criminal conduct discovered by an acquiring company during the acquisition of a target company. Under this policy, the acquiring party will receive a presumption of a criminal declination if it promptly and voluntarily discloses criminal misconduct, cooperates with any ensuing investigation, and engages in appropriate remediation, restitution, and disgorgement. The Safe Harbor policy is a clear continuation of the DOJ push for corporate voluntary self-disclosure. Monaco outlined efforts by the Department of Justice to increase the benefits to companies that voluntarily disclose corporate misconduct rather than those companies that decide not to disclose misconduct. The key for the acquirer company is to obtain the carrot the DOJ is dangling, and poses the question as to the stick the DOJ might wield if self-disclosure does not achieve safe harbor, or more broadly, if an acquirer fails to identify criminal misconduct in the acquisition process, either post-closing or pre-closing. The new M&A safe harbor policy clearly demonstrates the DOJ's interest is to avoid discouraging companies with strong compliance programs from acquiring companies with ineffective compliance programs or a history of misconduct. To the contrary, the DOJ is seeking to incentivize an acquiring company to timely disclose misconduct discovered during the M&A process. Under this new M&A safe harbor, which applies across the Department of Justice, not just to the FCPA unit or even the criminal division, companies that promptly and voluntarily disclose criminal misconduct with safe harbor period, then cooperate with the resulting investigation, engage in timely and appropriate remediation, and pay applicable restitution and disgorgement, will receive a presumption of a declination. Once again, key deadlines are: companies must disclose misconduct discovered, whether pre or post-acquisition, at an acquired entity within 6 months of the closing date. 2, companies will then have 1 year from the date of closing to fully remediate the misconduct. The 6-month and 1 month and 1 year deadlines, are subject to modification depending on specific circumstances and complexity of the transaction. The acquired company may also qualify under the M&A safe harbor policy for voluntary self-disclosure benefits. Interestingly, the DOJ clarified that any misconduct disclosed under the safe harbor policy will not implicate or be counted again in any future potential recidivist analysis. As with most new DOJ initiatives, these concepts have been around for some time. As far back as 2008, the DOJ in Opinion Release 0802 laid out safe harbor concepts in M&A. The opinion release was followed by the FCPA Resource Guide First Edition, released in 2012, which brought these concepts forward. However, many defense counsel decried the lack of certainty in both of these initiatives. Now, under the new M&A safe harbor policy, the benefits are laid out in black and white. The DOJ has made clear that this new mergers and acquisitions safe harbor policy, organizations that do not perform effective due diligence or self-disclose misconduct at an acquired entity will be subject to full successor liability. The DOJ's object is clear. They do not want to penalize companies with strong compliance programs from acquiring companies with weak compliance programs when they conduct proper due diligence and discover and then self-disclose misconduct. With this new policy, the DOJ is encouraging companies to conduct robust pre-acquisition due diligence and post-acquisition integration. Companies must have a prominent seat at the table if an acquiring company wishes to effectively de-risk a transaction. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, the DOJ mergers and acquisitions safe harbor policy encourages companies to self-disclose criminal misconduct discovered by an acquiring entity during the acquisition of a target company. Number 2, the DOJ is seeking to incentivize an acquiring company to timely disclose misconduct uncovered during the M&A process. And number 3, the DOJ has made clear that this new mergers and acquisitions safe harbor policy that companies that do not perform effective due diligence or disclose misconduct from an acquired entity or by an acquired entity will be subject to full successor liability. I hope you'll join me tomorrow where we take a look at the Department of Justice's remarks around the use of data analytics in a best practices compliance program. Thank you for listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.